Good morning. This is the 16th video in the Gerhardt Konig trial. I'm going to have to make two videos this morning because the defendant testified. This is so rare that a defendant takes the stand in his own defense. I am going to go into that. It requires its own video. So this one's going to be just a quick catch-up video. Late Tuesday night, the prosecution, I say late Tuesday night. I'm 6 or 7 hours ahead of this trial, time zone-wise. So I even missed this. I was already asleep. But they put Ariel's two parents up on the stand, the people that Emil refers to as grandparents. That's whose home he went to after he received that first FaceTime call with his father, ran over to their house, told them what happened. Judy, the grandmother, described him as being very upset. He was shaking. He eventually started crying. So it was a very emotional moment for Emil. And then the prosecution rested at the end of trial on Tuesday. Yesterday was Wednesday. They started the defense. The very first witness that was called was the man who owns the restaurant where Gerhardt made a reservation. Like, I think this is supposed to be some sort of alibi, like it wasn't premeditated because he had a dinner reservation. So the prosecution said, how hard is it to make a dinner reservation? Like, is there any hoops anybody's got to jump through? Basically, they use the Open Table app. Anybody can make a reservation, and you really don't need to make it that far in advance. It's not complex. It's not hard. And there's no penalties if you don't show up. So they don't have a cancellation. They don't take credit card numbers. They don't charge you a fee if you don't show up. So anybody can make a reservation, and anybody can no-show. Now, bear with me because I got to take a few minutes and talk about this doctor. So the defense brought in a forensics consultant. His name is Dr. Arden. He's an MD. And let me give you, sorry, I'm referring to notes, but let me just give you a little bit of his background. So he's been board certified since 1985, right? He is an anatomical pathologist as well as a forensic pathologist. He's going through his qualifications and he feels that he's very well qualified for this. He's currently licensed in 5 states to practice. So Florida, West Virginia, New York, and Maryland. And Maryland's going to come to play in a minute because he ran a lab in DC, and later there were some issues with that. Now, I'm not going to pretend this is nearly as good. If you all were a part of the Karen Reed trial, this isn't quite as good as when Robert Alessi took apart Shannon with one end. But it felt very good. It felt very similar. And I gotta hand it to the prosecutor, Garner. I mean, he looks younger. He looks, dare I say, like if I saw him on the street, I would think he was a little timid. This guy can do his job. And he went at this doctor, and I loved it. But let me start. So the defense brings him in, and his testimony, he's looked at all of the pictures, medical records, he's looked at all of the police records, he's looked at all of the examinations, everything having to do with Ariel's injury, Ariel's testimony. And what he is saying is that he believes the laceration on her head, while it's very bloody because lacerations on the head area tend to be very bloody, the gist of his testimony is that it wasn't nearly as deep or as terrible as she's claiming. He flat out said there is no way she was hit in the head up to 10 times. There isn't any way that Gerhardt was using full force. The laceration wasn't deep enough, hard enough. If he was using full force, it would have damaged her skull. There could have been permanent brain damage. So he's talking about all of these things. And in his experienced medical professional expert opinion, he feels that she's not telling the truth about how many times she was actually hit, and that at most there were maybe 2 to 3 blows to the head, maybe a little bit more than that, but probably that's what he's guessing. So when a prosecutor's like, let's take a few minutes and go through your CV. So he's going through the resume just to make sure the jury understands. And yes, on the surface, he looks like a very well qualified individual. And he goes, great, we'll come back to that later. Then he starts talking about the injuries to Ariel. And he says, you didn't put in your report about the injury to her thumb. So what's been very little discussion in this case is that Ariel already also broke a bone in her thumb that was like a defensive wound from putting her hand up to kind of stop from being hit. There was a broken bone in her thumb. And so when Garner's asking him about that, he's saying, you didn't mention the thumb. Clearly the thumb is taking some of the blows. If I'm in the jury, here's what I'm hearing. Ariel lied when she said he struck her as many as 10 times. The doctor's saying, I feel like she was only hit in the head 2 or 3 or maybe 4 times, like not nearly as many as 10. If I'm the jury, I'm like, that's because he hit her in the hand the rest of the time. Like her hand was blocking some of it. So when she says he hit me as many as 10 times and it felt like full force, she's not lying that he probably did swing that rock at her. What the doctor is saying is that only a couple of them landed on the head. So to be very clear, both of these things could be true. Now then Garner kind of goes back to like, why are you here today, doctor? Because a lot of the times, I mean, he's asking him like, how many times have you gone before court? How many times have you reviewed medical records? How many times have you reviewed police records? And it's in the thousands. The guy's like, I can't even guess. I'm an expert at this. And Garner says so much so that there's been times where you've like gone on the news and you've been on CNN and Nancy Grace and you've been kind of like the resident medical expert when they've been covering trials. And he's kind of like, yes, that's exactly what I used to do. So then he says, well, let's talk about the time you were in DC. What comes out of this, just the shorthand of this, was the chief medical examiner in Washington, DC for a spell. During that time, his lab was audited. And this is where he gets under the doctor's skin because he's like, didn't that audit say that there were inconsistencies in your lab? He's like, well, that's what the people that worked there were saying. So although the doctor tries to get out of this by saying the bad stuff in that audit is information from people who worked there that didn't like the way I did things. They said things like, the medical examiners claimed he didn't follow proper procedure, that he made up his own policies, which weren't the most established standard operating procedures. His employees claim that there were integrity issues. They worry that their autopsies weren't done correctly or on time, and it caused a backlog. And according to this audit, there were some findings that how he ran this medical examiner's office was not following proper procedure. So this is kind of what he's hit with on the stand. And you could tell this upset him. Like his integrity is being questioned. Garner also said, you get paid to be here, right? Like, what do you get paid per hour? He makes like $700 an hour. Where you get paid to be here, you get paid for travel. Normally, it feels like most of the time you appear for the prosecution. But this time you're appearing for the defense. And then he mentions that once upon a time, like 10 years ago, he and the defense attorney worked together on another case. So there's kind of like this connection. I don't think there's like anything dubious, but he kind of made the jury believe like you're doing this as a favor to your friend and you're here to make money and you're going to say whatever your friend asks you to say. So that's kind of how it ends with the doctor. I really got to hand it to Garner. I really thought that he did a nice job of sort of disassembling this and really called out the fact, like, you're ignoring the thumb. And by ignoring the thumb, you're not talking about the reality of the situation. So overall, that was a good cross-examination. Then Gerhardt takes the stand. And to be honest with you, I said this, I think there's no way they could have avoided it. He is a raging narcissist who needs to tell his own story. And that is exactly what came out on the stand. But not just that, this defense attorney, I think, has been just messy through this entire thing. And it's hard to get the full picture of Gerhardt's side of the story based on all of his questioning of the prosecution's witnesses. I don't think he landed anything. So come back for the next video and we're going to talk about Gerhardt's testimony.